What if everything we thought we knew about type 2 diabetes was, well, wrong? Today, we're diving into an online health guide that makes that exact claim. We're going to break down its entire argument, from the problem it sees to the solution it offers, all based on the source material. So, let's jump right in. Right out of the gate, the source makes a pretty bold statement. It argues that type 2 diabetes isn't some life sentence you just have to manage, but something that can be fundamentally changed. And that's really the core idea we're going to unpack here.
So that immediately begs the question, right? If it's not a permanent thing, why do so many people struggle with treatments that just don't seem to work? Well, according to this guide, it's not because people aren't trying hard enough. It's because we fundamentally misunderstood the cause of the disease in the first place.
All right, so first up, let's take a look at how the source actually frames the problem. It paints this picture of a massive and honestly a kind of scary health crisis. The guide starts with a pretty stark number, 25 million. That's how many Americans it says have type 2 diabetes. Just to put that into perspective for you, that's nearly 1 out of every 10 people. So yeah, that really sets the stage for the urgency of their message.
And the financial side of it? Just as staggering. The source claims that Americans spend $218 billion every single year treating diabetes. And it says that number is on track to double about every 25 years. Wow.
And here's where the source really hones in on a frustration I think a lot of people feel. It argues that the issue isn't a lack of information. It's a total flood of conflicting and, in its opinion, just plain bad advice. This information overload, it claims, just leaves people totally confused and stuck. So how does this guide propose to cut through all that confusion? Well, it builds its case by laying out what it calls 4 key discoveries that it claims basically turn standard medical advice completely on its head. First up, weight loss. You know, the conventional thinking is all about shedding pounds. But the source here argues that while losing weight is helpful for sure, it's not the real solution. It claims the specific types of food you eat matter way more than the number on the scale. Second, and this is a really big one, it takes on the whole idea of what the disease is. The guide contrasts the usual medical talk of managing and controlling the condition with its own much bolder claim that type 2 diabetes is, and I'm quoting here, a 100% treatable condition. The third point is aimed squarely at the official dietary guidelines. The source is highly critical of the American Diabetes Association's recommended diet. It claims that because it allows things like high fructose corn syrup, it might actually be making the condition worse, not better. And finally, we get to medication. Now, the guide makes a pretty controversial claim here, that current drugs don't really fix the underlying problem. It argues they just treat the symptom, sort of putting a cap on your blood sugar, while the root cause is allowed to get worse and worse over time. Okay, so if the source is saying that all these conventional ideas are wrong, it has to offer up a different explanation for what's actually happening inside the body, right? And that brings us to the absolute core of this entire argument. If it's not all the stuff we've been told, then what does this guide say is the real root cause of type 2 diabetes?
The answer, according to the source, is just one single word: inflammation. The guide's central thesis is that high blood sugar isn't the disease itself. It's just a symptom of this much deeper hidden problem.
So what exactly does it mean by chronic inflammation? Well, the way the guide describes it, it's like the body's healing process has gone totally haywire. Imagine stubbing your toe, and the swelling just never goes down. That's the analogy it uses for a body that's constantly attacking itself from the inside. And here's how the source connects that directly to your diet. It claims that when you eat what it calls the wrong foods, your body basically treats them like foreign invaders. This triggers an immune response, creating what it calls an inflammation fire that just keeps on raging as long as you eat those foods. Okay, so if chronic inflammation from your diet is the problem, what's the fix? Well, the guide lays out its own, very direct, 3-step strategy to deal with it. And the source frames this whole solution through the personal story of its creator, a woman named Jodi Knapp. It tells the story about a terrifying Christmas day when her mom collapsed with a blood sugar of 651. And that crisis is what it says kicked off this deep dive into research that let her discover this 3-step system. And here is that system, laid out in 3 pretty simple steps. Step 1, take out the foods that it says are causing all that inflammation. Step 2, add in foods that act like, and I'm quoting here, ice-cold water on a flame. And step 3 is just to let your body do its thing, to heal and, as the source claims, actually reverse the condition. And the results that this guide promises are honestly pretty dramatic. It claims that by tackling inflammation head-on, people can see their blood sugar levels normalize, stop thinking of themselves as diabetic, and even burn fat while still eating foods they really enjoy.
All right, let's pull all of this together and really nail down the central argument we've just walked through.
This right here is the absolute key takeaway. The entire guide is built on this one powerful idea, that we need to completely reframe type 2 diabetes. It says we should stop chasing the symptom, which is high blood sugar, and instead attack what it claims is the true root cause, chronic inflammation, which is driven by what we eat.
And that leaves us with the big question this guide is really asking. It's pushing for this radical shift in focus, asking us all to consider a simple but pretty profound idea. Could our health have less to do with what's in our medicine cabinet and a whole lot more to do with what's on our menu? It's definitely a provocative thought to end on.